Hello and good morning, everyone. Um, we're looking forward to having a great conversation today. Welcome to the webinar. Today, we're going to talk about Data Protection Board of India. Right, a lot of speculation, a lot of future participation in building this up. I feel the decision lies with the government, especially the ministry meeting right now. So let's see how we go about it. But we can at least read the law and see what is coming for the future. Where are we headed as an industry? And then I know that rules are also about to come out in the industry. So we'll also see how that shapes up, right? While we go through and with the rules, can there be a change in the formation of data protection board? I think we are going to answer all these questions in next 20-25 minutes as we go in this direction to have a conversation. Okay, so even before we start, I know a lot of you here are regulars, right? We're meeting every Saturday nowadays. So hello and good morning. I am just uh, going to quickly drop my hi and my location. I know we start with some PII. That's how we start friendships, right? Some personal data needs to be shared. So I'm just going to do that on the chat box in a minute. Yes, I have dropped it. Also, I am following your answers and your comments through my comment chat. So please feel free to ask, post a hi, say, tell us a bit about knowledge that you have, right? Maybe you have also know something you met the ministry, and please feel free to drop. Let's keep it an open conversation rather than feeling that this is a webinar. I think webinars are just an open conversation nowadays. We're just talking to you and you're talking to me, and that's how we're going to go ahead and have conversations. Yeah, let's set the context today. In another 2 minutes, we're gonna move on to the crux, and meanwhile, we just wait for some people to come live, right, so that we can start. Yep. Perfect. So as we move on, then I know we are 7 minutes into our session today, so I'll just get about it a bit about Tsaaro. Tsaaro is a leading privacy and cybersecurity services provider here based out of India. We have partners with majority of tool providers, and we help implement them and we resell them in industry. So that's a bit about Tsaaro. Why we are here today, we ourselves are trying to at least give out knowledge as much as it possible. So the disclaimer today for the session is we are uh, we are it's not a legal advice, right? First of all, and the pointers here are just like, I'm not representing the organization. It's my personal views that we are discussing today. Yep. Okay, a bit about me. My name is Akarsh Singh. I am the founder here at Tsaaro. I have been in privacy for last 8 years, and most of the certifications that are there in privacy, I would have them. Uh, been working with e-commerce, airlines, banks a lot in making sure that their journeys on privacy is done right and implemented in the right fashion. So I've been doing that as a consultant since last 8 years, and today I'm here talking to you about the data protection board. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. Yeah. Okay. So the board is established under Section 18 and Section 27, right? So Section 18 kind of defines the board structure, Section 19, if you see, kind of comes from, and I'm talking about the law actually, which passed in August 2023, the DPDP Act. We're talking about the law. And in the law, we're talking about, hey, hi, Rahul. So we're talking about, what sections makes or gives powers as to whom, right? That's what we're trying to talk about. So data protection board is the terminology. Generally, if you see in Europe, we call it supervisory authority. In India, it's called data protection board, right? So it's a similar thought that it's a supervisory authority per se. Uh, Becomes a DPB in India, right? So it's similar thought. It's a regulator basically. So we're talking about the regulator, and we're talking today about how the regulator will be formed, right? Sure. Okay. So if we talk a bit about history, right? So if we talk a bit about history, uh, the goal is uh, to make sure that the compliance is done right, and that's why a regulator needed. In India, we have RBI, we have SEBI, and now and also other regulators like a telecom regulator. But we're talking about data regulator this time, which is the Data Protection Board, and this board is going to be one of the defining for I think even if you look at AI in the future, right, even if you look at AI in the future, AI is going to be running on data, training on data, and giving answers on data. So I feel like even if you look at AI regulation in India, we're very close to the data protection board. And definitely, if you are a financial organization, even if DPB applies, still RBI is also kind of a regulator. So I think one problem that I see, and being a consultant, being working with most of the leading organizations in fintechs as well as leadings in banks, what I've seen is uh, the regulators themselves are not very cognizant about what is happening among each other, right? These are and the regulator's job is generally to review and to make sure that the nation's interests are at the top. So while that is happening and the cognizance is not happening between the two regulators, it becomes a bit difficult for us working in smoothly, right? Because if you look at RBI would also say, and they also say, by the way, that you have to be DPDPA compliant. CB also says you have to be DPDPA. So what I'm saying is IRD also says that. So the regulators have already asked people to implement, right? It's not like we are the DPB will implement. So other regulators are also implementing, right, the same text of the law. So anyways, the text of the law is getting formalized into frameworks, getting documented as rules, and then coming into organizational structure overall. Yeah. Sure. So the roles and responsibilities, right? Talking about the chairperson. So the chairpersons are the leaders of the board, right? That's what the chairperson's job is, right? They lead, just like supervisory authority has a leader. We have chairpersons, right? A similar thought process. And by the way, I'm comparing again and again the GDPR and other places because we are not doing something new, right? It's something that is already there globally. And if you are a privacy professional, a security professional, and understand a bit about what has happened in last 7 years, last 8 years, I think it's pretty much same. Powers are also similar. Fine is a bit different because here it's 250 cr, 250 cr. But if you think a lot about DP, the regulator, just think about a regulator which is going to regulate the data a lot more, and we'll have a lot more fines. We'll have, because that's why they're coming, right? They're trying to regulate as much as possible. And if you look at requirements like consent manager and requirement for a significant data fiduciary, at that point again we will have a lot more importance of a data protection board, because data protection board is also going to define some new rules, right? Even if we have rules which are coming in, we'll have more rules down the line, right? So that they can define, and then the decisions of a data protection board or the type of fines that a board will do will also set context for India's privacy journey in the coming future. Huh? Okay. Because understand, India is the largest democracy in the world. We have what, 1.5 odd billion people, right? Now 1.5 billion people, data, and then think about data privacy, right, on top of it. So I think once we start implementing it, right, this will set context for the world afterwards. Because in China, if you see, they are even so big and they are also much developed in terms of data, still they have a lot of opacity because of the type of regulations that they have put in, right? The data cannot be transferred a lot, the data cannot come out. So even if we do not know a lot of frameworks, so while working in China, right, what we also understand is there is a the regulators also want things happening in Chinese, right? But in India, it's nothing like that. It's we are in English, so everybody's every data is available. Type of powers authorities are available. Roles and responsibilities are more clear. It's easier to reach out to law firms. It's easier to reach out to consultants to kind of get clarity while going to a data protection board. Yeah. Okay. So compliance burden for organizations are increasing, right? The compliance burden that organizations have, definitely the overall cost to compliance is increasing, and it is going to increase as we go down, because not because regulators are trying to do something, just because this is a global phenomena, right? As we have more and more online data, as we have more and more attacks on cyber systems, right? I don't know if CrowdStrike was not an attack, by the way, but I don't know if you guys saw that, right? It's not an attack. It's just a mistake or one corrupted file, right? That just went out, and now whole world came to a stop, right? And CrowdStrike has a huge market penetration. It's not a small company. Airlines are not able to fly themselves. It's and that is the level of problem that we see, right? It's not just a simple, it's not just a straightforward thing, right? When we talk about CrowdStrike, it's pretty crazy that has happened. But the question also is like, who's going to solve this, right? Or who's going to solve the problem? I think Microsoft has given us advisory that, hey, go back, delete that file in the system. CrowdStrike also has given a similar advice that go open your laptop in safe mode, open your system in safe mode, and just delete that one file from the system, right? This makes, interestingly, one security software, one, right? There are so many in every organization, right? Just one security software, one wrong file update has made I think the vulnerability in the world that we think is so strong shows us why regulators are so important, right? Because if we we are not safe as a society, right? If we can't even make sure that our data is safe across, a lot of times people, and in the chat I can see there's a lot of people I have joined from India. A lot of times when I'm traveling across the world, right, and being in Europe, being in UAE, being in you know Spain, right, the Netherlands, right, what I've seen is when you are in India, there are so many spam calls that happen, right? When you're in Europe, that is not the case, right? The number of spam calls, the number of disturbance that you get from a mailer or a spam, also is also should be compared, or is a very direct proportional to standard of living. And that kind of scares me, that if we keep going and keep utilizing more and more data, and the marketing companies don't have a stop, don't have a pause, right? They will go at any level to do that marketing. So now the thing is, will the brand sustain by doing a marketing or n number of reach outs without having a status quo, right? Without having some rules and without having penalties by troubling people, because there are organizations who will just not stop, right? You call them like a bank credit card, like they call you and you call them and say, boss, I do not want this credit card, right? But they will still call you. I don't know who's buying credit card from that, by the way, right? None of my friends have ever. So at least they should have some analysis, right? That a credit card that they are trying to sell is not just about reaching out to 10,000 people. Why don't you use actually AI and do some customer analysis and actually just reach out to 1,000 people who can buy, right? It's not a hit and trial, right? In India, it's like, the type of data use that is there, it's hit and trial. Zero intelligence is being used. And at that point in time, marketing thinks that hoarding data will one day give them success. Is this possible? It is not possible, right? Hoarding data does not give us success. I think this is a consistent answer. This is a consistent thought process that we should all have. I don't know what's your thought, by the way. Do you think that hoarding data, while we are on this webinar, let me ask you, do you think hoarding data helps? And do you think marketing teams are actually in the same thought process? Or do you think that no, it's maybe in your teams, or maybe you've seen amazing marketing people who actually have thought about this. So I just want to check with you before we go ahead. What do you think? Okay, so while you write that, I'll just kind of have a quick discussion on how appointment is going to happen. So the appointment will be by the government, right? By the meeting. The appointment will be on that basis. Person who's going to be the data protection board chairperson should make sure that anybody who's applying for that job or even government is reaching out, they're reaching out because of a lot of reasons like their expertise, leadership, commitment, and also knowledge to data protection, right? Without that, if somebody doesn't know and becomes a regulator, will become a problem for all of us. So I hope, by the way, I hope that what's written in the law gets implemented, right? And that's what I hope, right? I hope that the government thinks about this and get someone who knows data protection rather than just putting some other, somebody senior who's doing something and has IT knowledge, which is a general case in the government. So they do that. I hope they don't do that. I wish that a DPDPA actually comes sensible, because then they can give us advice, right? And while that advice comes through, those changes that they come through, we also have to localize things, right? We in India, I'm talking about, when every economy needs to localize these guidelines, right? So if I'm in UAE, I want the local regulator. I want to work with them. If I'm in India, I want to work with the local regulators, right? Because the local thought process is always different. The type of data set is different. The type of data use is different. The nature is different. The culture is different. So goal is to work locally, right, here in India, and that should work out for us, not following a supervisory authority from Europe, right, or a US IFT. So basically, we just can't do that, right? There's a limitation. We could have done that, and I think we are kind of ahead of that thought process because they have also matured, but we can't mature that way because that is not our way. Okay, perfect. So, folks, this also brings me towards the end because this topic was not that big, right? The goal, hi Afros. Yeah, the goal was just to educate everyone on data protection board, but we are meeting every day Saturday 11 a.m. We are meeting every Saturday 11 a.m. and I'll also call some more friends of mine from the industry from next week onwards, so we'll have more conversations. If you are interested in having this conversation, and just grab a cup of coffee, grab breakfast, right, and let's just talk together and have to go through this. So thank you everyone for joining in, and I wish you luck, happiness, and amazing weekend ahead. And I'll see you Saturday 11 a.m. next week. Have a nice day.